Stream supposedly going. Recording is supposedly going. All right. So yeah, welcome back, guys. This is our quote-unquote eighth, if you're following the timeline, seventh session of Ophion Adventures, and I really only have one pressing announcement. Next week we will be taking off because it is the 31st, and I have a New Year's Eve party to attend. Or no, it's the 30th. Sorry. I still have a party that day, so we will be taking off the 30th. Schedules permitting, we will return on the 6th of January. So basically a week off after this session. The only other thing of note, really, is that to start off the session, I've asked our lovely captain to do a sort of supplemental log. And all of you can really chip into like the summary of last session if you so wish. And basically, I'm going to give you guys a bonus momentum to start off if you guys do a good recap, kind of a thing. I realized looking at past games that I really should be giving you guys something for putting up with my antics regarding logs. So I think moving forward, anytime anyone does a log to open the session with, I'll let you guys start with an additional momentum. So without any further ado, Captain, do you have a supplemental for us?
Indeed. Captain's log, supplemental. The Ophion's first contact with the Xavoise has, for the most part, been very textbook. We have arrived at the homeworld, Xavoise Prime, with the purpose of beginning a dialogue and the sharing of preliminary information. These are very ambitious people, albeit with a heavy capitalistic focus, and could potentially be good trading partners to support the exploration of the expanse. Aside from some digestive incompatibilities, I believe that this first contact mission is proceeding very smoothly. Our contacts have been friendly and cordial, and their homeworld, Xavoise Prime, is the stuff one only hears about in science fiction. A planet entirely converted into a single massive city, without the obvious pollution. Despite the differences in our technology, I believe that there is much we could learn from one another.
Awesome. You did a great job. I think you hit the main points. So again, you guys start with an extra momentum. I think looking back, you had, I think it was two or three. So with the scene change, let's just make it easy. We'll say you start with two momentum. Let's just put it that way. Let's make it nice and easy. But to again kind of paint the picture, since we did kind of end rather well, not abruptly, but since it's been a week. So again, when you guys see Xavoise Prime, it is, as the captain says, it is a giant sprawling mega city. It is, as he says, pretty much the equivalent of a Hive World in 40K or Coruscant from Star Trek. It is just one giant city, and there doesn't appear to be any pollution, as the captain mentioned. So obviously they're doing something to get rid of all that, and that might be of interest to you, especially since the Federation and other species out there are capable of terraforming. But obviously this is still an impressive feat of engineering. Where we last left off, your first contact,
The
SKV.
Federation is always interested in ways to reduce the footprint on the environment.
Exactly. But your contact, SKV, had just called you up, just hailed you. She had welcomed you to Xavoise Prime, and she has, quote-unquote, paid your docking fee, or paid your orbiting fee, whichever you decide to use. And she's given you coordinates for a spaceport that her corporation, Jeb Media, controls on the surface. And she's extended an invitation for the captain or any of his senior staff, or really anyone that he feels necessary to go down to the planet, kind of a thing. So that's where we're going to start the session, is right after that hail has finished, and you all are deliberating who should go down at this point.
Merthrin is very adamant that he should come along.
I would not deny you that request. I'd like to leave either Pinnock or Beckett on board the ship, but I'm out of character. Whichever of you wishes to come, I'm more than willing to accept.
Pinnock will volunteer to stay on the bridge.
Very well. Then the
Me
ship
too,
is
me too.
yours. Mr. Beckett can join us down on the planet just in case we have any further unsavory encounters.
Okay.
Since I did give Locke a double shift, I think I should reward him by allowing him to come to planet, if he wishes.
I'm uncertain. I could definitely do some research up here, but on the other hand, I could also eat the food, and there might be other environmental factors where my bullying physique might help.
What's the material of the structures down there? Is it the same as the ship?
Yep.
Will our transporters function?
Your transporters won't get you into the buildings, but you could conceivably beam down to the spaceport location. But it's probably one of those things where, as a species, they haven't really had much contact with or seeing transporter technology. So it's.
I'm saying I guess we take a shuttle.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm trying to push you guys as to maybe you want to take a shuttle for this one.
Yeah, so
Each in the hole, agreed.
yeah,
If we're gonna-
keep the trump card hidden just in case.
If we're gonna take a shuttle, I'll take the Seiko Lotus, the supporting character. She's a beta ship helmswoman.
Yes. Okay.
Sure, absolutely,
Ah, yes, the Cardassian.
All right.
that works for me.
I think that's everyone. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, that's everyone.
Yep. And I suspect, let's bring a random red shirt just for security detail.
Okay, noted for one random red shirt.
Just in case.
Oh, do I not have Mr. Redshirt, Monto Rouge? Do I not have him in this game? I apparently don't. Oh, I'll make up a red shirt later, but we'll say he is with you for sake of argument.
Ensign Crimson.
Yes, Ensign Crimson.
Although technically the security officers wear gold now, don't they?
Yeah, I think so. But, you know,
Ah, yes, because they swapped the command colours.
Right.
it's still one of those things
Either
where
way,
we
he
know.
doesn't have a last name.
Ensign Ricky.
Oh, Lord.
So before we go, Captain, I'm just uploading some stuff into my tricorder. I've tapped into their non-secure network, and I'm just kind of downloading all their news for the last 24, 36 months, and having the computer cross-reference proper names, which would give us some information of the major newsworthy figures.
Okay.
Area.
Wonderful.
Fine
work, Mr. Locke.
Let me scroll to that page. So, you are going to see several names, and I'm just going to kind of shotgun them towards you, and you can make of them as you will. Apparently, in something that's called the Nexus, there is some major construction that has just been finished, and you see mention of something called the Big Eight. And in exploring this Big Eight sort of phrase, you determine that, again, kind of as a reminder from last session, is that there are these 8 main, pretty much like planet-spanning, empire-spanning megacorps. And they are, for sake of argument, probably the most influential people, quote-unquote, within the Xavoise government. You also see that a CEO of the company known as Willowares, a Zorzu, Zorzu, apparently he has recently given all of his underlings some sort of raise across the board. It's made him very popular, and it has definitely caused Willoware's stock to rise. You also see that a Xavoire, Zivore, is kind of like Elon Musk of our actual world. He's kind of a self-made billionaire that does a lot of philanthropic and other esoteric projects. And his latest escapade seems to be that he has bought out Torrent Ale Works, which is if you weren't able to tell by the name, which is basically a restaurant slash bar chain that, of course, he now owns. Other than that, you see a few mentions of some contact with other species, but they're all ones they've encountered before. It's not like, the Federation that you just showed up kind of a thing. So you see some mention of Cardassian, you see a few mention of other species. You don't really know what they're talking about. Like, if I remember the map correctly, I believe the Tholians are kind of nearby, but they wouldn't be out this far a whole lot. So I think that's everything I can give you. Did you have any specific questions or things of that nature?
Nope, just wanted to get the proper names of anyone so we know who's who big players, and just generally don't walk into a situation and be like, who?
Okay.
As a Cardassian, are they aware of the war that just took place?
Oh, yeah. I would say they are definitely aware of the fact that Cardassia is still rebuilding, and that with the Dominion War finished, a lot of the Cardassian territory has been split up. But I don't think they know perhaps the minute details of everything. So they obviously would know you've been through some sort of war, but I don't think they would know that, obviously, that there are Cardassians in Starfleet. You would be kind of their first sight of such a thing.
They wouldn't know the Dominion, and the Dominion came from the Gamma Quadrant type thing. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that detail probably slipped through the gaps.
Was there any mention of Jet Media Corps in the news?
There is. Let me scroll to that page. So, basically, the news you get from Jamedia is that all of the news articles about them are either releases of new mining equipment or some sort of material return report. So you get the sense that Jamedia is probably both the purveyor of mining equipment and actual miners themselves.
Works for me.
So yeah, I throw as much as I can onto a pad so I can inform the captain as we go.
All right. Well, if I remember my Trek lore appropriately, a single pad is equivalent to a original series computer, so you can stuff a lot on there.
Yeah.
Very well.
All right.
Yeah.
So,
Nothing. I don't think there's anything else I need before we head down. Anyone else?
I know I typed in chat that I would be bringing a tricorder and I will be armed, but I'm also going to bring a small med kit. Or, I mean, it could be left in the shuttle, but knowing the situation we've had with their food, bringing the appropriate things that I think we would need in case of that type of problem comes up again.
okay. Locke, you can feel free to correct me on this, but I believe a med kit is technically a Opportunity 1 cost.
I can't remember exactly off the top of my head, but I believe it's unless you're a medical personnel type.
Okay. We'll say then you don't have to pay the cost for it. You can just bring it since you're the CMO.
I was going to say, I hope I'm a medical personnel as the CMO. I hope that counts.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Yeah,
didn't I hire you as a chief engineer?
Engineer.
Am I supposed to hypospray the conduits, or am I performing surgery on people? I don't remember.
Who knows at this point? Oh dear. All right.
Honestly, those EPS conduits could do with a hyperspray.
All right. So since we actually have a pilot character, Miss Lotus, if you would be so kind as to give me a very simple control plus con task. The difficulty here is just going to be a 1. And this is just kind of to see how well your descent into the atmosphere goes. Very simple task, but still potential for something that goes wrong. All right, so you get a momentum. You're up to 3. So thanks to
navigate rush hour traffic.
yeah, thanks to Lotus's expert piloting skills, your shuttle breaks into the atmosphere with little to no turbulence. However, collision warning alarms begin blaring as this giant spire appears out from underneath the cloud layer. Luckily, Lotus is very much paying attention and is able to not only react in time to bank you away from the giant spire, but to put you on track for the coordinates you were given. About a 10 to 15 minute flight later, all around you becomes this almost like cyberpunk slash synth wave, 80s style, bright lights, neon signs, buildings that scrape the sky. It is,
You can almost hear the Daft Punk playing in the background.
yeah, it is a triumph of technology and 80s campiness. And shortly thereafter, you arrive at your destination. It looks very similar to what you see on the screen right now. It's a rather generously sized landing pad that could probably accommodate somewhere between 3 to 4 runabout classes with room to spare. And you see that SKV's shuttle has already landed, and you see her in particular waving you down as you look out the window as Lotus brings the shuttle to a stop and opens the back hatch for you all to disembark.
Oh, before we go, wasn't there something about the atmosphere that we needed a medication or shot?
No, that was only for the ship. There was some sort of contaminant that came in from the Class Y planet that made it just ever so slightly toxic. But not, if I recall correctly, the atmosphere of the planet was fine.
That is correct.
Shall I stay with the shuttle, Captain?
I
had to.
sorry, Miss Lotus. I honestly didn't realize you could do soprano. No, please join us. At least for now. Let's see what we're getting into.
Oh, then I'll shut down and I'll lock the shuttle, like
Absolutely.
The lock on it.
Beep beep.
Yeah, the warp nacelle just go blip, blip.
All right. So, assumedly, you all disembark the shuttle, and you, of course, see Miss SKV as well as her assistant Izina. And SKV kind of steps forward to meet you all halfway across the gangplank, and she says, Captain and your senior staff, it is a pleasure that you've decided to join us. I trust you found your way here without any incident?
The buildings were a bit of a surprise, but however, our stunning pilot, once again impressed with our maneuverability. I believe you've already met Commander Murthrin, Commander Beckett, and Lieutenant Locke. May I introduce our shuttle pilot, Ensign Lotus, and Ensign Ricky.
I see. She gives a very curt nod to both Lotus and Ensign Ricky, as his name now is. And she says, well, if you would follow me, I would love to give you a tour of Jamedia's facilities.
I look forward to seeing it.
Excellent. This way, please. And really, without waiting to see if you're following her, she turns as if expecting you to follow. And the way the marching order, I imagine, works is basically she's at the front, you guys are somewhere behind her, and then her assistant is playing caboose. And pretty much the way I'm going to flavor this is as SKV kind of points out certain things, her assistant Izina will then explain in more detail. So, for example, after you guys leave the landing zone and head into the building proper, SKV takes you to what looks like a massive logistics center. So it is the stereotypical movie-style control room where you have hundreds of monitors with all sorts of readouts. You have rows and rows of people working at their own consoles, and there's a massive star map in the middle of all these screens that takes up probably about half the room in size. And SKV just kind of motions through the glass window separating between you and the room, and she says, and here you'll see our main logistics rooms. It's from here that we coordinate all ongoing and all future mining endeavors, whether they be ones we've been specifically contracted for or ones we own ourselves. Pretty much every bit of information that flows through here is immediately stored in our computer core, which we'll be seeing shortly. And she actually kind of frowns a little bit and looks through the window at the map, and she says, that's odd. Apparently there's nothing you guys need to worry about. If you'll follow me. And you get the sense, I guess Mirthrin in particular, since you are Betazoid, you get the sense she's a little bit confused and maybe a touch annoyed at something she saw. But you can't really, I mean, all of you looking through the window at the control center.
I don't really have a frame of reference to work out what's out of the ordinary, so...
Correct. Yeah, to you, it just looks, impressive and normal, quote unquote. So as SKV leads you to the next destination, Izina, pulling up the rear, says, it's really interesting that she showed you that. Most of the time, she doesn't let anyone see that who isn't a part of Gem Media. She must be very excited to be the one to sign the contract with this Federation of yours.
I just raised my
looks around and goes, how so?
Well, I don't think she's mentioned this yet, but basically whichever corporation establishes formal first contact in writing or via a contract, they typically end up a part of the Big Eight. So there's a lot of writing on this, and there's a lot of incentive for SKV, my master or mistress, to get you guys to sign on the dotted line, as there were.
Sorry, the Big Eight, are those the largest of the mega corporations?
Yes, they are. And she rattles off a bunch of names, which I didn't really go into detail because you're only going to really encounter one, maybe. But Willoware would be part of the Big Eight, which was part of Locke's newsreel that he went through.
I subtly nod as she lists up the names.
Okay.
And as Mertrin sort of comes in past Captain, he sort of leans in and goes, I imagine she's going to be a little bit disappointed when she finds out we kind of have a deal with everyone equally sort of approach to this sort of thing.
That actually might be Captain?
Yes, Mister. Yes, Locke.
Just a concern. We don't want to cause any kind of trade war or influence their politics too much, which would be a violation of General Order Number 1.
Well, General Order Number 1 only exists for races that haven't broken the warp barrier, as you.
Internal politics are still internal affairs, even for warp-traveling species. I mean, if one corporation gets vastly more powerful due to exclusive contracts with the Federation, that is interfering with their natural development, even if they are warp-capable.
Indeed. That is a concern. However, their own laws pretty much say first come, first serve. And if they enter in some sort of competition with one another, well, it is what it is. But at the same time, the Federation is made up of so many different planetary organizations and corporations of ourselves. It's possible that everyone here can have a slice of the pie. It does seem that Gem Media deals primarily in mining equipment and mining rights, which is obviously good on the resources front, but there must be other corporations that specialize in other technological aspects.
Yes.
And Lotus will kind of pipe up and say, "Pardon my intrusion, Captain. I am
Yes.
something of a history buff, and especially when it comes to the Federation. And then I believe this is very reminiscent of the first contact of Saria and the dictator Maltuvis. A trade deal for his dilithium caused a civil war, and eventually him to take over the entire planet."
And answer the in-chat question. Yes, I would have thought that at the very least, if the captain didn't, probably Panek would have thought too. You did tell Starfleet you were coming here.
Yeah.
And it's a case of we're right out on the fringes, so we basically have to exercise our own judgment.
Yep.
Yeah, pretty much.
If they could even get a respond real time or
I would say you'd get a response from Daedalus Station at the very least, and they would have just given you the go-ahead to proceed as you see fit.
We are trained Starfleet officers, after all.
Mm-hmm. Now remember, it is also part of your mission out here in the Speen Expanse is you are designated Federation representatives. So you have the power to at least create a preliminary or tentative trade agreement or alliance or anything of that nature. It's entirely within your power to do so.
We should have brought Nog. All right. Well, it's that everything for the moment is on the table. I'm not going to discount such a positive influence to the Federation this far out in the middle of unexplored space. That could both be a good ally as well as a local source of resources, so we don't have to run that Romulan gauntlet again.
That's a fair point, actually. The ability to have an independent supply chain would actually be very useful.
Indeed. And I just shrug my shoulders and go, well, we're just down here to gather information. We'll let the diplomatic folks handle the nitty-gritty.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm assuming we're still walking and talking as this is going on?
Oh, yeah. At this point, Escavi has shown you a sort of a... Well, to use Musk again as an example. So you see the equivalent of what would be SpaceX's kind of warehouse/building room. And in it is currently under construction what looks to be a smaller version of Escavi's ship. So either a mining drone or a smaller mining ship. And it looks to be actually almost near completion. And Escavi kind of comments, and as you can see here, we have the new Type 9 mining vessel. It is slated to go into service within the next month. And it should be able to speed up our process of mining what you would call Class Y planets almost tenfold. It is a huge leap forward in both mining technology and starship integrity.
Is there a large concentration of these types of planets in this sector of space?
Yes, indeed. Izina, if you could be so kind. And Izina says, okay. If you'll look here, and she holds up the equivalent of a pad, so you all kind of can turn and look at what she's showing. And you see that pretty much within the sector of space that Xavoise Prime and the Xavoise Empire is contained in, there is close to 45 Class Y planets.
That seems unusually dense compared to what we're used to, correct?
Oh yeah, it's one of those things where a Class Y is, it's an uncommon, if not rare occurrence. So to see what is probably somewhere in the ballpark of 50%, if not more, Class Y planets in the area, that's interesting.
Would you mind if I took a quick copy of that map? It'd be very useful for our star charts.
Oh, sure. I would love to give you some. And I guess you kind of like touch pads and the information transfers or something.
Sure. Yeah. Actually, I don't pull out my pad. I pull out my tricorder and kind of copy the information onto that.
Okay.
And while I'm doing that, I kind
Probably
of
works a little
leave
bit
it, archive it, and then see if I can do a quick scan of the hull of the new ship. Serendipitous.
And as you have corrected me correctly, I believe that is a reason plus science. I'm going to say it is still a difficulty 3 because of, what the ships are made out of. So yeah, you've got 3 momentum, so it's entirely up to you how you want to do this.
Do you mind if I burn a momentum?
Go for it.
Oh, very nice. Got what you needed. All right. So, again, it's very similar to, makeup-wise. The smaller ship is very similar to the much larger one. By that I mean, of course, it has what seems to be typical Krondite Nitrium alloy with magnesite plating. However, you do note, even though the magnesite plating is making it difficult to get a clear reading, you do note that the magnesite plating is much, much thicker on this particular ship. You also note that before the usual reactors are powered by Pergium, this is using what might be trilithium or something similar to it. So it's I wouldn't call it a vast departure, but it is definitely a side jump to what you assume is their standard power source, if that makes any
Developing
sense.
sort of dilithium adjacent technology base.
Yes.
Good.
Would it
I don't push
be-
my luck and immediately holster my tricorder.
Okay.
Don't want to be charged with industrial espionage.
I think you get behind the helm of that.
Out of curiosity, are all Xavoise ships so sort of indicates the sharp lines severe looking?
Escavi just kind of laughs and says, well, if you must know, one of our great artists a few centuries ago was responsible for the aesthetic. I believe his name, and you have to give me a second because I have to find where the hell in my notes I put this. His name, in case it becomes relevant, is Gokia, and I'll put that in chat because I'm gonna butcher that 6 ways to Sunday. But one of our great artists, Gokia, was responsible for the aesthetic that you see today. Honestly, our best engineers tell us that it is the most efficient pattern for our current level of warp technology, though I'm sure we could learn a thing or two from you Starfleet types. Obviously, we were able to guess you are capable of warp speeds much higher than ours. And while we would love to get our hands on that technology, I'd completely understand if you were unable to impart such knowledge.
Well, certainly not right off the bat. I mean, got to be careful with these sort of things. Nothing worse than starting first contact and then just destabilizing the political climate of an entire culture.
Tell me, I feel like this has come up once or twice before in conversation. Does Starfleet have a directive or something along these lines?
Yes, the Prime Directive.
Tell me more.
The Prime Directive is Starfleet's and the United Federation of Planets. One of our core beliefs. We do not wish. In our early founding, we were arrogant with the sharing of our technology and thought that we could assist the development of lesser developed species, those who had not yet broken the speed of light for their high-speed travel. Such arrogance sadly led to the demise or destabilization of many species that we had extended with good intent, the hand of friendship. As such, we have developed what's known as the Prime Directive, where we will not interfere with the culture of pre-warp civilizations in any way possible. Such a directive has been expanded and has taken on different forms when dealing with new cultures that we first discover, and the sharing of our technology right off the bat. Species must meet certain guidelines in order for us to share certain technology. For example, a unified government is among them. They are not allowed to enslave another species, as another example. But I am a starship captain, and the minutia of such lengthy documents I leave to our diplomatic expert.
In practice, it's mostly about making sure that we don't impose our own cultural values on a culture that would not appreciate it.
Well, I'd be happy to inform you that we definitely do not enslave anyone that I'm aware of. However, I'm curious, this need for a unified government, how stringent of a quality is this?
It is fairly stringent. My planet, Bolus, had a fairly fractured government, and we were not permitted to join the Federation until we'd achieved a unified government. But for trade relations, it is less stringent.
Correct.
Yeah,
the unified government and
for species seeking membership.
Correct. If for establishing a trade relationships, we don't require such stringent requirements, so long as we see the others, so long as the Federation sees our trading partners as not abusing the technology that we give them, we can work something out.
I believe that's good to hear. I am curious whether or not you would consider a plutocracy a unified government.
Just a second while I Google plutocracy.
So, add a character, because I had to look it up myself. Basically, it's when... Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, as we all start Googling plutocracy to see what it is.
So
the rule of the wealth. I believe, right?
It's basically a small minority of the wealthiest citizens are the ones that control the government. I mean, it's
interesting.
It's not a bad thing per se. It's just that there's a lot of control in the upper 1%.
Yes. I mean, the Federation has trade negotiations with the Ferengi, and the Ferengi operate in much the same way, actually probably more obviously than what we've seen here.
Yeah, a single leader rather than...
Even the Ferengi have a Grand Nagus who unifies how
they have their own trade commission, or whatever they're called. So, let's just say that Miss Xavoise is that we are open to understanding all different forms of governance, and once we gain a more thorough understanding of how your society works, then we can base our trade agreements on what we see.
Well, and it's at this point that I think you guys have seen quite a bit of her facilities, and a lot of it is, again, mostly to quote-unquote awe-inspire you, kind of to give you an idea that Jim Media is fairly well off, even though they're not a member of the Big Eight. And kind of as the tour wraps up, Xavoise just kind of turns to you all and says, well, that's all the quote-unquote interesting things I think would be of interest to you here at Jim Media Corporations. However, I would love to show all of you the more exotic side of Xavoise culture, if you all are interested.
I'm game.
Absolutely. Just no food, please. We ate coming down.
I did hear about that. Rather adventurous of you.
Sometimes risk is worth it. Sometimes risk leads to a upset stomach and far too long in the facilities.
Lotus would be interested in kind of seeing the slum area, seeing the people that aren't the wealthy and how they are treated and they live.
Oh, very, very well spotted.
Okay. Escavi kind of thinks for a moment and says, "We can stop there on the way by, sure."
Do we need to go to the? Can we just go to like the employee break room and ask the workers?
I mean, if that's what you'd like to do, as long as you don't harass my workers, I don't see why not.
Speaking from personal experience, I find that when one power controls the nation, it tends to be on the back of the others.
So, Izina is going to kind of look at Lotus a little bit with narrowed eyes, almost as if trying to see past her in some way. And she says, "Ah, right, Cardassian. I knew that face was familiar from somewhere. I don't think we have quite the same quote-unquote problem that your government had, but I understand your need to see such things with your own eyes."
And
There has been more than one occasion where we've run into a society which seemed perfectly fine on the surface, and then after the fact we found, oh, hey, there's this really problematic thing that we missed.
her little stare at me, can I kind of infer whether or not that was just her trying to recognize my face, or if she was like probing my mind?
Oh no, she was just trying to recognize your face.
Okay.
Yeah, Murthrin would have picked up any sort of telepathic or empathic projection, and he hasn't to this point. But yes, Escavia just kind of claps her hands together and says, "All right, well, if you'll follow me, we'll take one of my private cars, and we'll see both the slums," which is interesting. I didn't expect her to go there today, but, today is a very exciting and special day. So not only will we go there, we will also go to one of my favorite nightclubs. And I believe
And me without my dress uniform.
Me without my accordion.
All right. So she leads you down, unless she's stopped.
Easy with the accordion. We don't want to cause a diplomatic incident.
Oh, Lord. So unless she's stopped, she leads you down to a garage of some sort, and you are taken to what is the Xavoise equivalent of a limousine. It is an elongated vehicle that is hovering about a foot off of the ground, and you get the sense that it can, of course, fly through the air as needed. And it will easily fit all of you with room to spare. And, of course, Izina takes the wheel, because Escavi is not going to do her own driving. And after a few moments, you leave the garage behind and go out and back into the deluge of neon lights and other such synthwave-style trappings. And
I'm just going to...
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, as we're getting into the car, I'm just going to come up to Panek.
Okay.
Captain Skull to Mr. Panek.
Ophion here, Captain.
Just as an FYI, Lieutenant Commander, we have finished the factory tour, and Miss Escavi is taking us on a quick tour of the city before heading to one of her favorite party joints.
Understood, Captain. We are monitoring your location and tracking as according.
Very well. Very well. Skull out.
All right. So it takes probably about 15 minutes for you to get into what would be considered the seedier side of the current city you're in. And as you get down into this area, things start to be a little less bright and a little less shiny. But the one thing that sticks out to all of you, before we maybe do a few rolls to see if you notice anything else, is that you don't see any signs of like homeless people. Like you don't see people crowded around barrels for warmth, kind of a thing. Obviously, you do note that it's like kind of living in New York City, around Harlem. That it's maybe not the best place to be walking around, but it's not, so out of control that you couldn't live there, kind of a thing, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
Commander Beckett's thinking what I'm thinking.
If your society is ruled by the wealthy, what rights are afforded the everyman?
Well, we do have a few immovable tenets of our society. We do, of course, allow free speech and freedom of expression. We also have the right for every citizen to have their own home and access to our extranet. We also heavily encourage the pursuit of whatever interests a individual person. Obviously, there is, I guess, different from your society. There obviously is a bit of a capitalist underpinning behind all of this, but in general, most people are able to pursue their own sort of dream.
This is. If I may ask, how long has your society been developing on Xavoise Prime?
Oh, let me think. It must be. Well,
At least in its current form.
Oh, in our current form, I would say the current form is perhaps 2 centuries old. Before that, we were I wouldn't call us a warring species, but we were definitely not as unified and as upheld, or not as, what's the word I'm trying to look for out of character?
Fractious?
Yes, that will fit. Not as fractious as a society.
I must say, you've done a lot in two centuries. Despite our technological advances, we've never converted an entire planet into a singular city before.
Well, to be fair, a lot of that is thanks to the generous members of the Big Eight. Even though they may control a vast array of power and influence here on Xavoise Prime and in the Empire beyond, all it takes is a philanthropic or otherwise beneficial CEO to get us to where you see us today.
Like Zorzu.
Correct. Like Zorzu.
Pay attention to her reaction when I say the name.
Zorzu is
That's Willowwares, I believe.
Yes. Did you mean Zorzu or did you mean Xivor?
Xivor, I did Xivor, yes.
Okay, I wanted to be sure because it will be a different reaction. So when Xivor is mentioned, she just smiles and say, "Oh, yes, indeed, like Xivor." How much do you know about him? Obviously, you must know of him to bring him up, but I'm curious to know how much you do know yourself.
Oh, just what your media has said. I pay attention to such things.
Ah, well, if we are lucky, you might meet him tonight.
I raise an eyebrow and just remain silent, looking at the scenery outside.
Okay. So I did want to give you guys an opportunity if you wanted to, quote unquote, scrutiny the area of the seedier side of the town if you wanted to.
Sure.
And anyone who would like to do that, I would say that would be an insight plus. Let's call it security, unless anyone has a better argument. And we'll make the difficulty a 2.
Ooh.
Nope.
Anyone else interested in rolling?
Locke is gonna choose not to, and instead whip out this tricorder and just check the current news, see what people are talking about the new ship.
Okay,
What people are
yeah.
saying.
So, Locke, you pull up your tricorder and immediately tune in to the local airwaves, and yeah, there's a lot of discussion about the shiny new ship in orbit. There's a lot of speculation going on, and to kind of give you the real world equivalent, it's the Xavoise equivalent of 4chan, basically. So there's all sorts of comments and opinions and everything in between of
We're
what
trending on Twitter.
Yeah, you're trending on the equivalent of Twitter. You are the subject of much speculation at the moment.
Any nice glamour shots of the ship that they've snapped?
Oh yeah, there's quite a few. In fact, some of the more artistic individuals of the society have already begun trying to fuse Xavoise aesthetics with the Ophion to kind of result in this more sleekly designed Xavoise ship.
Just to err on the side of caution, Pinec is going to be making sure to run every counter cyber intrusion suite available.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I would have assumed that was just standard operating protocol, but good to mention. Let's see. So I think that's all you'll get from your scan lock. Everyone else who did the insight, yeah, you didn't notice anything that was quote unquote out of tour. But you also don't get the sense that this isn't like North Korea where there's a specific tour route, and if you go beyond it, you'll find something you don't like, kind of a thing. It seems to be on the up and up.
While I do not witness any destitute citizens, in my own society, the Central Command did a very good job of hiding such things. As a capitalistic society, surely not every megacorp is interested in such altruistic values as yours.
This is true. However, I would say that we do take very good care of our citizenry. Our unemployment rate is only 1%, and even them receive assistance from the government to be placed into jobs and things of that nature.
A plutocratic a plutocratic pseudo-socialist society? Once again,
Stranger things have happened.
that is true. It is an odd. Your society has developed abnormally to what we're used to seeing, and you'll pardon my crew's disbelief.
Yeah. What he means is there's a few of the founding members of the Federation sort of went in this direction and it ended incredibly badly.
Yes, we shall all remember the fate of the Zindi.
Well, since Pinec is not here to say it, infinite combinations, infinite diversity.
Don't go growing pointy ears on me, Mr. Locke. Please.
Yes, sir.
All right. So again, unless any of you... Oh, go ahead.
Well, I mean, I think Mithrin read... Well, I mean, bear in mind, there was that one time the Enterprise came across a planet where the entire planet was involved in a war, except the war was what was happening entirely within a computer simulation, and then they just sent off however many people the simulation said died as casualties to actually die.
Oh, I remember that episode of TNG. I remember that one. Luckily...
Actually, original series.
Oh, was it original series?
Yeah, that was TOS.
Oh, I thought it was TNG. Any event. So again, unless any of you stop Escave's little tour, she takes you back up to the more illustrious and shiny part of town, and her quote-unquote limousine pulls up in front of a magenta and aquamarine looking nightclub, and there is a big old neon sign above the entrance, and it says something that isn't coming across in the translator. And standing guard in front of these big double doors is your stereotypical bouncer or two, and there is, of course, a waiting line that seems to stretch almost a block. So this is a very in-demand club, whatever it is.
Well, this is her terrain. I'll let SKV take the lead.
All right. So she kind of steps out of the car once her assistant opens the door for her, and she motions for all of you to follow her. And pretty much when you approach the entrance of the unknown bar or club, whatever it's called, Xavoise, or not Xavoise, SKV kind of turns and says, "I'm a frequent patron of this place. We should have no problem getting in." And she goes right up to the bouncers, smiles at them, and without so much as a word, the bouncers step aside and allow you all to enter. And I can put you on this map. So almost immediately, as soon as you step into the threshold, it's not so much to the point where you need to start covering your ears or anything, but there is the almost immediate presence of pounding music that emanates throughout this area. And you see everything from several bars to several lounge areas to dancers that are in these sort of magenta-like tube things. There is a lot of similar styles. Like if I had to use our own media, for example, so Omega from Mass Effect 2 would be a good example of what you're seeing. I forget the club in Eve. I forget what that one is. But basically, you see something similar to the background that we have here. And SKV just kind of motions around and says, "Well, I would hate to let you all not explore this place. Of course, I would be happy to be your guide, but if it's all the same to you all, I will be seated over there." And she points over to a turquoise washed area of lights that seems to be a sort of more private area of the bar. And you can see that there is a bouncer of similar make that was at the door that is kind of meandering about that area.
What did she say? Murthrin calls to Captain Skull.
I think she said something about beer.
Do official duty regulations apply right now, Captain?
I think right now we're on diplomatic circumstances.
I wouldn't recommend imbibing any of their alcohol.
I was just about to ask Mr. Beckett if there's anything here that we can drink.
Oh.
Judging by our previous experience with their food, I would say probably not.
Probably for the best, then. I'll just take...
Cardassian physiology is made of hardier things.
Well, if you would care to roll for it, I would say this would either be a reason or science, or reason plus science, or reason plus medicine. I'm guessing reason plus medicine is probably better for you.
Yeah, I will definitely do that.
And
do I get anything from the tricorder or no?
Well, that's
like
what
assistance.
No, not as far as assistance, but I'm assuming you are basically pulling out your tricorder, and I'm going to set the difficulty here at a 2.
All right.
What's their momentum right now?
You guys should have 2 momentum at the moment.
You can do it.
Oh, come on.
Hey, you got what you
All
needed.
right.
So, actually, Beckett, as you scan the many bottles of unknown liquid behind the bar, you do note that there is actually a few things that all of you could drink. The first of which is there is, in fact, a bottle of Canar if you wanted Canar. There is something that has similar chemical makeup to vodka, obviously with a Xavoise flair to it, but you're pretty sure that someone of the human or Trill or Betazoid persuasion would have no problem drinking. And then for our lovely Cardassian and Bolian crewmen, there is what is the equivalent of Andorian whiskey. Obviously, it's a lot more strong and a lot more system heavy, but you don't see a reason why Lotus or Locke could not imbue it if they so wished.
I will point out the appropriate drinks to our crew and let them know that those are the only ones they're allowed to have.
Lotus smiles at this and makes her way to the bar.
All right.
And
All right.
I will actually stick with Lotus.
Okay.
Let's keep it light, people.
All right. So, out of curiosity, who all is going to get a drink at this point? I think Lotus probably is, but who else?
I think
Skull
Earthrew
may
would
as well.
get one and then join Escavi.
Okay. So, for those of you getting a drink, it turns out that all it takes for you to get a drink is to mention that you're with Escavi, and there's almost like an immediate look of understanding on the bartender's face as he nods and says, "Oh, yes, of course. If you're with her, on the house." And each of you that wants one gets a drink of your choice. And you... Well, I guess I should ask, do you kind of wander around with your drinks, or do you go to join SKV kind of a thing?
I'm actually gonna stay and chat with the bartender. I'm gonna
Okay.
ask him about. I kind of ask him, what's it like here normally when there aren't aliens parading around? What's the place like, the planet in particular?
Oh, well, it's honestly not at all dissimilar to what you're seeing now. Obviously, we're a little bit excited to see newcomers like yourselves because you represent all sorts of new opportunities for everyone. Was there any particular area of society you were interested in?
Those who tend to not be wealthy, those who are not part of the governing body. How are they treated? How are you treated? What would you say your class in your society is?
Oh, well, I guess if I had to qualify it, I guess you'd say I'm lower middle class. I get by. Sure, I can't afford the sort of illustrious meals that the other part of middle class and upper class can, but I'm certainly not want for anything. I have my creature comforts, and as long as I don't indulge too much, I can afford both what I need and what I want, kind of a thing.
And those below you?
Well, it kind of gets a little bit tricky the lower you go, but it's one of those things where even our lowest members of society at least have a roof over their heads, a hot meal, and some form of employment. For the most part. We do have a small bit of unemployment, but I think that's just unavoidable.
But not everything is as it seems, though, right? You can tell me. Like, come on.
He kind of just raises an eyebrow at you and says, "I'm not sure I understand what you mean."
I'm saying, it's a little too good, don't you think? The way this society is run. I mean, you can't have, someone at the top like it is here, and not them. Them not Just something's not right. You can tell me.
He just kind of looks at you very questioningly and confused and says, I honestly don't think I understand the question. It's been like this for a couple centuries now.
Mm-hmm. And then she'll kind of take a swig at her drink and say, mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah, he'll just as many times as you try to reword the question, the response is pretty much the same. So that might set off warning bells in Lotus's case, but who knows? Anyone else?
Trust the Cardassian to be the suspicious one.
Everyone else, where are you guys headed? I think Skull, you're wandering around. Beckett, you're staying with Lotus. Locke and Mirthrin, what are you two up to?
Captain, permission to do a little public relations?
You mean flirt, right?
Not quite. No.
Oh, right. Bolus only can...
Well, this might
Yes.
be an exception, but let's. I don't want to push my luck.
I just raise an eyebrow and nod off at some pretty young thing.
All right.
I'm going to go see if I can't find a nice view, maybe from the second or third floor. I want to
Okay.
get a good look of the whole place.
Oh yeah, you are easily able to find a prime vantage point on the second floor that lets you see the entire place, and it looks really nice. This is the kind of club you'd expect to see on. Is it still San Francisco? That's the good city in 2378, or
Yeah, San Francisco is...
That's the one where Starfleet's based.
yeah. It is a very nice club. Like, this would be the equivalent of the Starfleet Officers Club back on Earth.
Do I have a good eye on Xavoise from up here?
You do. And you see that I don't think anyone of the away team has joined you yet, but a male Xavoise wearing what appears to be, for lack of a better descriptor, a Hugh Hefner robe has joined her, and they appear to be in adamant conversation with one another.
Interesting. Just pull up my pad that I got from Locke. Does the face match any of the big eight?
It doesn't match any of the big eight.
Oh, or any of the noted CEOs?
Yes, it does in fact resemble the self-made billionaire Xavoise.
Interesting. Okay. I'll mosey my way down there, just taking my time. I mean, Beckett can heal my ears, right? So just listening to the thumping of the music is different than what I'm used to listening to.
I mean, it's not that loud, but I get what you mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can still have a conversation, no problem. Locke, I think you were going to do something, though, before we get too far away.
I'm just going to find a nice quiet corner, pull the old tricorder, and find the equivalent of Reddit and do an AMA. I'm the alien. Ask me anything.
That... Okay.
The questions they ask are going to be very
no way this can go wrong.
Oh,
no.
dear.
Holy shit.
How do I even want to handle this? Okay.
That's what I'm off doing.
We'll say you get a few interesting questions, and I'll leave it up to you whether or not you want to answer them. The first one...
Question number one, is the blue one single?
Oh, God.
How do you sex?
So that actually is probably...
That's probably one of the first questions, actually.
Those questions are probably definitely present because, that's typically what Reddit does. No, but there's a couple questions that do come to mind which you might choose to answer. The first is one of the artists of the culture, obviously not as big as or as well as Gokia, but a man known as Tragu is curious to know what passes for music or entertainment for the Federation that you come from?
I give the diplomatic answer of there's lots of different planets, all with their own different types of music, but we have holographic technology that is the common entertainment.
Okay, so at the mention of holographic technology, you get a few people asking what's the limits of your technology. Like, if you remember from last session, they obviously use holograms to communicate with one another instead of using a view screen. But you still get the sense that they're not as far as advanced when it comes to holo technology.
I keep it imply stuff. I try to keep it a little subtle. I don't mention replicators, transporters, or any military tech.
Okay.
I just kind of it's so we can create holograms of most matter. And we have rooms that we use.
Like
Alright.
a fully immersive setup in a room.
Fully immersive setting with
All right.
things that could pass the Turing test, or like I don't know, phrasing that differently in a way that's doesn't
Turing
require
test?
knowing what Turing
That
is.
didn't quite translate.
Yeah, I was going to say, you might have to go in a little bit more details of what a Turing test is, but I get the idea of what you're going for. Probably the last question that I can think of off the top of my head, which might be relevant for you, is they are curious as to whether you are accepting apprenticeships at the moment.
I belong to an organization known as Starfleet that is a humanitarian and diplomatic armada, and we do accept membership from various species.
Armada has some very negative connotations there, bud.
I think it'll translate
Humanitarian
fine.
peacekeeping.
Yeah. I got what he meant. I didn't interpret it as sinister, so...
I'm quoting Admiral Pike from the Abrams movie.
Ah.
Oh well, I mean that guy. I mean, come on.
Well, you mean the guy who made a gigantic Borg Enterprise?
No,
That was the other guy, wasn't
I
it?
don't remember that movie at all. I don't think that's a real movie.
Oh, dear.
Shots fired.
While Locke is breaking their collective internet, Lotus is going to walk back over to SKV and say hello and then introduce herself to this self-made billionaire guy.
All right, so actually, as you go to introduce yourself, Zavor actually stands and meets you with a handshake before you can so much as open your mouth, and he says, "Ah, you must be the Cardassian I've heard so much about. Ensign Lotus, was it?"
It was.
Come, sit. I see you've already got a drink. Please tell me they put it on one of our tabs, and he motions at himself and Escavi.
They did indeed. Thank you.
Excellent. Please come, sit. And he sits down himself and, kind of waits politely for you to do the same before he continues.
She'll sit.
Mercer will be somewhere behind her at some point.
Okay. So, you take your seat, and he says, "So, I'm curious, based on what we know of the Cardassians, they are kind of their own star empire. Obviously not as... Well, you must not take this the wrong way, but obviously after the Dominion War you're still recovering, but are Cardassians common in Starfleet?"
Not so very much, but I hope to set a precedence to change this.
Interesting. And what is your function on the Ophion? It is the Ophion, right?
It is. I function as a helmsman. I control on my particular shift. I control the flight path and plan of the ship itself.
Interesting. And I'm curious, do you get paid at all for this job?
Paid? No. The Federation does not function on a monetary system, which is quite different coming from the former Cardassian Union, which ran on Cardassian Lex. There's been quite a transition.
I was about to say, in your situation, I would have thought that they would have paid, but hey, It's the wonders of different societies. Everybody's got their own thing going on. And I guess he turns to Murthrin since you're nearby-ish, if not seated.
Yeah, Murthrin's probably arriving with his drink at this point.
All right, so he says, and this must be the Lieutenant Commander I've heard so much about. Murthrin, right?
Yes, Sarvek Murthrin, Chief Engineer.
Excellent. Please, also, have a seat. Have a seat. And
I don't mind if I do.
yeah, once you're seated, he says, so, of course I understand if you can't tell me, but what do you think of our technology so far? Is it something I should maybe invest a little bit more in?
Well, from what we've seen so far, it's actually quite interesting. I mean, in terms of metallurgy, you're actually a little bit more advanced than us in certain areas, and I was actually very impressed when we came down how little pollution there was. I mean, I would have expected a lot more for a planet-sized city.
So you say that I should look very heavily into pollution and terraforming as well as metallurgy. Should our two empires? Nah, empires is too harsh a word. Our two civilizations come to some sort of agreement.
It's probably going to be what we're most interested in.
Interesting. And he pulls out what would be the equivalent of a pad, except it's kind of like a flip phone of old, and you see him beginning to type some things into it. And Xavoise just very politely, but still intrusively, looks a little bit shiftily at his pad, and she kind of giggles and says, well, you've just prompted him to buy quite a bit of stock in a few companies.
Yeah, and Murthrin sort of looks, is that a good thing? Bad thing?
Xavoise looks up from his pad and laughs and says, oh, don't mind me. I like spreading my money around.
Lotus will look at Murthrin and kind of go, give him an eye and say, I think we should be more careful with what we say.
I mean, granted, but it's not exactly a secret, is it?
Well, look at the effect that you just had. That you've just... Your word alone has bought and sold an entire corporation, it would seem.
That's a bit of an... That's not an she's not exaggerating, is she?
Xavoise smiles and says, oh, no, I didn't actually buy out any corporations. I just, got a few good shares going. I now have 10% in Forstetics Inc. And, of course, I think that technically places me on their board now, but hey, it was a long time coming. I was already looking at Forstetics before you'd even arrived.
I think now the
Murthrin sort of looks mildly concerned.
So, Captain, you were saying something?
I believe now I would make my way down to these guys.
Okay, so you'll probably walk up right as this happens.
Yeah. Miss Xavoise, Mr. Xavoise, I believe?
Yes, indeed, and you must be the illustrious Captain Skull.
Captain Skull of the USS Ophion. I'm a little tipsy, so I'm just going to stick out my hand and hope he shakes it.
Okay, yeah, he definitely stands and eagerly shakes it.
Pleasure to meet you. I'm quite impressed with your society, and I hear that you are an up-and-coming businessman of very good repute.
Well, I'd certainly like to think so.
Don't really have much in the way of small talk. I don't actually know what I can say that would not cause this civilization to self-destruct in a flurry of capitalistic move and counter moves. So I'm just going to say, so, you know what I haven't noticed around here? Any wildlife of any sort? Do you have beasts?
That's a good point. That's a good point, actually, Murthrin says. I hadn't even realized that. Didn't even notice any birds.
Well, of course and Xavoise is the one who answers this. She says, well, of course, we have some wildlife that has adapted to life in a planet-wide city, but for the most part, we have relocated most of the species to a nearby Class M world which we have designated as a protected preserve.
That is so much better than I was expecting.
And how do you feed 8 billion people?
Same here.
Well, we have several garden worlds that import food to Xavoise Prime. Of course, we can make certain things on our own, but the more taste-happy things like steaks and heavy meats and cheeses all come from these garden worlds.
That's quite a logistical undertaking for
Everyone
your
else,
size.
soy burgers.
Yes,
Especially considering your warp factor.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. Actually, the replicators are going to destroy the economy of the garden worlds.
we
Becca,
have
Please join us.
Escavi kind of says, well, yeah, we do have a rather impressive logistical network set up. If I know my figures as well as I think I do, we have shipments scheduled months, if not years in advance. So we are very dependent on the chain not breaking down. And even when it does, there's enough leeway that we can deal with any situation that comes up.
What's the name of the musk guy again?
Xavoire?
Xavoire, I'll type it out.
Yeah, basically, Captain Skull has quickly tapped out on his pad to send to all the other pads, do not mention replicators. Would cause civilization collapse.
So, Lotus will turn to Xavoire and say, Mr. Xavoire, though we haven't spent much time here, your name seems to come up a lot. And you seem to be brandied about as the most forward-thinking Xavoise. So tell me, what exactly are your plans for the future of your society?
You give me too much credit. I'm just a simple man who has a simple vision for the Xavoise. I'd like to see us all expanding our wealth and expanding our society to, see more of the stars. Right now, we're very clustered together, and I would just like to see us. Based on the little I know of your Federation, I would like us to see more of the stars and perhaps begin being a sort of power player in the region of space that we're now in.
It's a dangerous calling, but it's a very rewarding one.
Indeed, indeed.
Yes, the Klingons on one side, the Romulans on the other, and the Olians out there.
And that's not...
And the Cardassians, too.
We ran into that energy thing in the conduits just the other month.
Oh, yeah. Well, hopefully that was a one-off. There are dangers out there, and it would do to have some friends who have been out and about and have seen parts of the galaxy to help you out there.
Yes, well, I'm sure if my lovely lady Escavi here has not already told you, we would be very interested in exchanging star charts.
That's an interesting term, we. Are you two business partners?
In a sense.
Partners?
We are partners in the sense that while the third house controls obviously a majority of the shares, I control 2% of the Gem Media Corporation's stock.
Interesting. Well, we'd be happy to exchange star charts and other data that we have found in the general area. Have you heard of a long extinct species called the Takan?
No, I can't say I'm familiar with them at all.
They're long dead ancient civilization. We had hoped we found a couple of their old relics in our sector of the galaxy, and we hope to have found more out this way. But so far, nothing of any great significance.
Well, maybe we do know a few things. I just don't know off the top of my head. Be one of those things we'd have to do some research on.
Well, I mean, he didn't mention the fact that we found one of their planets. It's like, oh yeah, this is an alien civilization that existed at one point. They're gone now.
Yeah. I didn't mention that.
There's probably a few of them out here.
Probably.
Lotus will turn back to Xavoise and say, and then kind of glance at the captain. She says, "I don't mean to speak out of turn here, but while your society and civilization seems to have found a stability point now, there are certain effects that a relationship with the Federation may bring. How would do you think your society would fare a shift in its morals?"
How so?
I can't speak specifically, but do you think it would is at a point where it would survive a shift in ideology or principles?
Depend on the shift, I suppose.
Awkward silence.
It's not too awkward because pretty much after it, like right before it gets super awkward, Xavoise will begin
Hello?
expounding.
Can people hear me?
Oh, yes, we can hear you now.
I can hear you.
Did you have something to say, Captain?
Apparently not. Oh, fuck.
Oh God, can he not hear us? Yeah, I'll just tell him to restart. Yeah, usually when that happens, a restart of Discord fixes it. Yeah, now we're not hearing him at all.
Not getting any sound.
A little bit odd that it happened during a call. Usually that sort of thing happens, at the beginning.
Weird.
Well, we'll give him a couple minutes to figure it out. But it does sound like he had something relevant to the conversation, so I can't jump ahead. So
Should we just take an early break then?
yeah, let's do an early break.
That's good.
Be back here in 5 to 10 minutes, and hopefully Skal will have his things fixed by then. So beer beat.
Alrighty.
All right, I'm back.
You.
Well, hopefully, Skull's able to get his stuff together, because it would be kind of awkward if we had to lose him mid-session.
Would it though? And then Pinect kind of rubs his hands.
Yeah, it would pretty much have to be one of those things where the captain and Pinect would have to switch places.
Oh boy, and then I'd be talking to myself sometimes.
No, I think I'd take over Lotus for you. That way you don't have to talk to yourself. Alright, heard Murthrin and Locke, so I think those two are here.
Mm-hmm.
Beckett, are you back yet? Does not appear to be the case. Alright, we'll give them another couple minutes, and then we'll try and proceed ahead and forward, but as I was telling Pinect, it might be a little bit awkward because we'll have to swap out Pinect for Skull.
Jump up and do a scene on the bridge.
Yeah.
Mm. Because this is about the point in the episode where someone gets kidnapped or something else goes wrong. So,
Mm-hmm.
okay, good, that isn't coming through the speakers.
No, not hearing any feedback. Usually we sometimes get a little bit, but we're not hearing it usually.
No feedback, no bird.
I don't know. I always like that bird input. It's always great to hear it every once in a while.
Yeah, but birds dozing at the moment now. It's the fire alarms going off.
It's usually how I tell if Bishop's still here, is if the bird says something.
Yeah, it's a case of I actually often forget about it because, like, if you have a cockatiel, eventually you just learn to just automatically tune it out.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I probably don't notice it as much as I could, but it doesn't bother me. So if it bothers anyone else, I haven't heard it yet. So All right. Tell you what we'll do. In order to keep the session moving, let's go ahead and continue. And hopefully the captain can rejoin us. Oh, I heard Beckett for a little bit.
Yeah, that was me. Sorry.
Okay. So yeah, as I was saying, we'll just go ahead and proceed on with the session. Hopefully the captain can rejoin us. If not, we'll deal with it in turn. So unless any of you have any more pressing sort of conversation topics to have with Xavoise or SKV, I will move us ahead a scene. So last call for any sort of questions, insights, etc.
Nothing specific. I mean, I think at this point we just continue with whatever the standard establish talks with what counts as a world government in the society.
Okay. Anyone else?
No.
Nope.
Locke just continuing to answer ridiculous questions and try to infer as much as he can from the questions being asked.
Okay.
Civilizations based, like, really like, I don't know, pie. We'll ask a lot of questions about, like, what type of pie do you eat? So I kind of, like, I'm looking through that.
Okay. Panek, as part of your vigilance up on the Ophion, would you be watching the quote-unquote public broadcasts?
I would make sure the comm officer has them running. I wouldn't be personally watching them.
Okay, so the comm officer will report that apparently Lieutenant Locke is holding an AMA. Oh, there's the captain.
We have the captain back.
Can you hear us?
Hey, sorry about that, guys. My internet just decided it didn't like life anymore.
That's all right.
I know that feeling. My internet's been doing that on and off for the last week or so.
Everyone
Close
gets
to a
depressed around
promotion.
holidays.
So it sounded like you might have had something to say, though, Captain. Do you remember what it might have been?
Oh yeah, most of the things I was trying to say is hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Help, can you hear me? Most of it I cut out just as Ensign Lotus was about to begin some sort of spiel against or to Xavoise.
Okay. It wasn't so much against. It was just sort of like observation. If their society could withstand change, and the Xavoise that were present, Escavi and Xavoise were kind of like, well, it depends on the change, and that's pretty much where we left the conversation when you died. But yeah, did you have anything you wanted to bring up with them, or can I skip ahead a scene?
Oh dear.
Oh no, did we lose him again?
Yes.
No. It's cool. It's cool. Alright, well, we'll press on.
Sorry,
Back to Panay.
Oh,
I'm still not stable here. Proceed without me for a few minutes while I figure things out.
okay, we'll do. Alright, so we will skip ahead a scene. So after you all have, good round of conversation, and maybe get a few questions answered, and answer a few questions of your own in Locke's case, you are taken back to the Jamedia Tower where your shuttle is waiting. And as you step out onto the landing pad, you see that surrounding your shuttle, I'm just going to put them there on the map since because trying to actually get them surrounding this shuttle would be a nightmare. It would also help if I took away the BRB. So as you return to the shuttle landing pad, you see a group of 6 Xavoise that are in what could be considered some sort of basic armor, and they all seem to have some sort of energy pistol, and they're currently trying to get into your shuttlecraft.
Sort of veterans gonna sort of lean over and go, I'm gonna assume they aren't with you?
And Escavi sounds and feels, especially in your case, Marthrin, very angry. And she immediately steps forward and demands, who the hell are you, and what are you doing to these people's shuttles? One of the goons turns and kind of sneers at her and says, well, we're just cleaning up before the new bosses roll in. You ain't gonna be much in charge longer, Third House. And Escavi goes, I'm sorry, I must have heard you wrong. That sounded like a threat. Do you mind repeating yourself? And the goon laughs and says, no, it ain't a threat. You should see this. And he tosses over what looks to be the equivalent of a pad, and Escavi reads it, and you hear and feel an audible gasp from her, and she says, I don't believe it. Zorzu's bought 49% of Jamedia's stock.
I lean over and whisper, that'd be the CEO of Willowware.
Yes, it would be.
I take it that can't be good.
Lotus is going to walk up
The
to
phrase
these.
hostile takeover springs to mind?
Lotus and Ricky is going to motion Ricky over, and they're going to kind of step towards the goons and say, "You are tampering with Federation property. I must ask that you cease."
All right. So obviously, the goons stop what they're doing and turn to you, and mostly for effect, put their hands on their belts where their pistols are currently holstered. They're looking towards the lead goon to decide what they should do at the moment.
I'll chime up and tell them, be smart. We're not the type of people that you want to make enemies out of. And I'll mirror their motion of putting my hand on my phaser.
Okay. And as you do that, let me actually put Ricky's token on the map. As you do that, I would like... Really, anyone who wants to roll this can, but I'd probably say Ensign Ricky would be, as a security personnel, would be the most optimal person to roll. So anyone can roll for Ricky. You're basically rolling under a 13, and he has a focus here. So if you get below a 3, it'll count as a crit. So whoever would like to roll, you can do this several ways. I'll put it in Discord, the easiest one to do. And if you copy paste that into Roll20, it should automatically do the roll for you.
Alrighty. Let's see how he does.
Okay, so he gets the 2 successes he needed. And Ricky will immediately go for his phaser and say, "Look out, sir!" And he'll dive and knock the captain out of the way. And not a moment too soon, as one of the goons unleashes a disruptor blast towards Captain Skull. And we're now in combat.
I'm thinking Murthrin's first course of action will be to sort of dive, tackle SKV behind the nearest bit of cover.
Okay. So it's... I don't think we've actually... Well, we've done combat once, if memory serves. So kind of as a refresher, the way things work is, unless any of you have the skill or the talent or are spending momentum to retain the initiative, the way it works is you guys act, then they act, then you guys act, and it goes back and forth until every actor in the scene has, well, acted. And then once everybody has, we reset the initiative order, and then they go first, and then it's you, etc., etc., etc. So for the first turn, which among you 6 would like to act first?
I will sort of go first because I'm wanting to get SKV behind cover before they try to get her in the crossfire.
Okay. So I would say that's not going to require a task. It's fairly simple for you to tackle her out of the way. But that would be your action.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's going to do that and then set himself up to start laying down covering fire next time.
Okay. So on the goon's turn, well, I should ask, did you guys want to retain the initiative, or do any of you have the talent? I don't think anyone has the talent.
I do not.
All right. Well,
all my talents are about being extra good with the jury rigging stuff.
all right. Well, you do have 2 momentum if you wanted to spend 1 to retain the initiative.
It might be a good plan of action, so that way all of us get our actions first, and then they will go.
Well, it'd be we just act twice, and then one of them would go. You return it.
Oh, okay.
It's one person at a time unless we spend momentum to have 2 people go one after the other.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. I think we can just let them get one, and then come back to us. That way, if we need to use the momentum for something like, making sure that our area hit, our spread shot actually hits, then I think we'll just let them go. we
Okay.
won't hold the initiative.
Alrighty. On the goon's turn, the lead one is going to go ahead and fire off a disruptor shot. We'll say since Mirthrin and Skull are already down, the next juiciest target is the blue Lock. So, Lock, unfortunately, you are the target of their attack. And survey says they miss horribly. So a blue disruptor fire just soars past your head.
Striking complexion.
Never been shot at before. I don't like this.
But luckily, it does not connect. So who would like to go next?
I've got something I'd like to try.
Okay.
So getting into cover wouldn't cost me my action, would it?
I believe that is your minor action, yes.
So what limited cover I'm sure the spaceport have. I'd like to get into it and then pull out my tricorder.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to remote into the shuttle to turn it on and access the transporter system.
Okay. Do I want to even make this a roll? Yeah, let's make it a roll because this is combat situations. Something could conceivably go wrong at the worst possible time. I would say this would be... Ooh, what would this even be?
Plus, activating a transporter remotely sounds like a bit of a tricky thing to do.
How do you feel about a daring plus engineering at a difficulty of 2?
I'd probably spend a momentum if I did that.
Okay.
What's our current momentum?
2.
All right, so yeah, I will.
Okay.
That means I would roll 3 dice, right?
Correct.
Oh, would improvisation work here?
Oh, yeah.
And focuses?
Oh, yeah.
I also have small craft and helm operation.
Yeah, you have a lot of focuses that apply here.
Ooh.
Yeah, so Lotus, you do your best to try and get your tricorder to talk with the shuttle's transporter systems, but either the connection is being jammed or the shuttlecraft isn't understanding your commands.
Damn it, blast. Alright, I'm done then.
Okay.
Did you turn off your cap lock before you entered your password?
All right. So the goons turn again, unless you guys want to spend initiative. Another one will fire at Beckett this time. And I believe 2 successes. So that means, Beckett, you are going to be hit by this. Good news, it's relatively minor damage. And I say that and roll freaking okay. So, Beckett, you're going to take a grand total of 8 stress, which will automatically give you an injury. Now, there's a few things...
Well, it's a good thing that we have a doctor around.
Yes. Now, there's a few things we can do about this, because if you get an injury, you're technically out of combat. However, what you can do is you can spend, I think it's either 1 or 2, and I'm trying to look it up. But basically, you can spend momentum to... Oh, it's 2 momentum. You can spend 2 momentum to avoid an injury. Now, of course, you don't have 2 momentum, so you can give me a complication instead. But you could conceivably remain in combat if you so wished.
Alright, let me check my talents to see... Oh, that doesn't work. Nope, that doesn't work either. Awesome. There's awesome medical talents. I don't know if you guys know this. They're really, really cool. But none of them actually get rid of injuries. Not a single one.
Do we want to call the Ophion and have them beam us up? And then have someone beam down to the shuttle?
That was my next question. Since Pinek is monitoring this, I didn't want to step on anyone's toes, so wasn't going to bring it up. But I mean, would he be aware of like weapons fire and this going on?
Oh yeah, I would think at this point you would be aware of the weapons fire. So it'd be something we could do on the next player turn. You could start trying to beam them up. But we do have the operative question here, Beckett. Do you want to take the injury, or do you want to maybe suffer a complication to avoid the injury?
And suffering the injury completely takes me out of combat,
Yeah,
correct?
completely takes you out of combat.
Then that's not what I want to have happen. So, I will take a complication in trying to avoid the injury.
Okay. I'm going to say that... How do I want to say this? You need, in order to not get into what would be considered a severe condition, someone or yourself will need to do a appropriate first aid conflict action before you basically bleed out. So you're currently hemorrhaging, and you are in need of medical attention.
Okay. Well, then that actually does help with one of my talents. I can do it. I will attempt first aid on myself.
Okay. I will say if you want to do that, it will... Well, it's your turn next, so...
Okay.
Go ahead.
I was going to say I have the first response talent.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever you attempt first aid during combat, you gain a bonus D20.
Mm-hmm.
Further, you may always succeed at a cost, with each complication you suffer adding +1 to the difficulty of healing the patient's injury subsequently.
Okay.
So I would be making the roll at 3d20, and I can succeed at a cost, correct? If I'm reading that right.
Sounds right, yes. So first aid is daring plus medicine, and the difficulty is only a 1. So you...
That sounds hopeful to me.
Yeah.
Give us that sweet, sweet momentum.
Are you guys okay with me spinning the momentum?
Hey man, you're gonna be injured. Take it. I mean, when else would you use it?
Alright. And hopefully I might be able to get us some momentum back, because that'll take me to 4d20.
Mm-hmm.
And applicable focus, how about a good one that's called emergency medicine?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, got 1. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I don't think it's rolled yet, though.
Yeah. No, I don't see anything on the screen.
Yeah, I'm having internet
there it
spottiness.
goes.
Like on mine, it rolled me with a 0, a 1, a 1, and a 0.
Okay,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
see that now.
Okay.
So that's all you need. You get a momentum back. And yeah, Beckett, we'll say you're able to pull yourself into some cover behind the shuttlecraft and treat yourself so that you're no longer in danger of lasting injury.
Okay.
But that would be your turn. So
That's fine with me.
in order to address Penek's thing, if you wanted to spend that last momentum you just got, I would say Penek up on the Ophion could then act.
Yes, please.
Yeah. Why don't we do that?
Ophion to away team. We are detecting weapons fire at your location. Do you require
Yes,
assistance?
Thank you, we noticed.
Captain Skull, since he isn't here, I'll play Skull for a moment. He says, yes.
Hello.
No.
I'm,
Oh, no.
Oh,
hang on.
no.
Oh, we just put him back.
I think
Hey, the captain's back.
Captain Skull picks himself up from where he fainted. Sorry, so looks like bad guys showed up.
We went back to the shuttle. There were some goons trying to break into the shuttle, and turns out Willaware has just bought a majority share in Jamedia Corporation.
49% or something.
49%.
49. Okay, so that means that, and the reason we're fighting is
Hostile takeover.
Literally. Okay.
Yeah, no, we surprised them while they were trying to break into our shuttle.
While he's deliberating,
we tried unsuccessfully to diplomacy our way out of this, and yeah, they opened fire.
Panek is going to call for a security team to stand by at Transporter Room 1.
Oh, there will be no standing by. Beam immediately, please.
Beam the security team down or beam you guys up?
I mean, I don't want to run away on our friends, but at the same time, this sounds like part of their culture.
Let's get the
I don't
captain
want to
out
leave
here.
them with the
We can
shuttle.
beam up, and then someone can beam down to the shuttle to stop them from stealing it.
What was that?
Like, we can beam us all up, and then like Lotus can immediately beam back down directly into the shuttle.
Could you beam us site to site into the shuttle?
You could.
That's actually probably a smarter way to do it.
Or even just the captain?
I don't know. You guys tell me what the play is.
Sorry, guys. I think I gotta sit this out. My internet's just going all crazy.
No worries. It happens.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
so-
Panek
If
is
things
gonna
stabilize, I'll come back in, but until they do, I'll just have to sit out.
Okay. Well, thank you for being here for as much as you could be.
Yeah.
All right. So, what's the play, guys?
Get the
I
captain
say-
up to the ship?
Okay.
Yeah. Well, beam us all into the shuttle and then fly off.
Okay. Do you want to include SKV in this beam?
Yeah.
I mean, I would assume so.
Okay. In that case, do I want to have
But-
you guys roll for this?
I'm just a slight change. I'm not going to beam everyone back into the shuttle because the site to site means we're going to take you back up to the ship, and then redirect the pattern buffer, or whatever, down to the shuttlecraft. So I'm just going to make sure the captain, SKV, and Beckett at least rematerialize on the ship, and then redirect everyone else's patterns to the shuttlecraft.
Yeah, like Lotus, Mirthrin, and Ricky onto the shuttle probably makes the most sense.
And
Okay.
lock.
And Locke. Don't forget Locke.
Please don't.
Yeah, we can do that. I'm going to not have you guys roll for this because I don't really see a need for this. This is, even though transporters go wrong sometimes, this is a time where them going wrong might lead to a TPK, and I don't want a TPK. So we'll say that happens on your turn, and half of you basically are...
The goons get a sudden surprise as half the people just disappear in a shower of light.
Yep, the entire away team, including SKV, disappear in a shimmering blue light. Half of you rematerializing back in the shuttle, and Skull, Beckett, and SKV back up on the Ophion. And Lotus, as well as Locke and Mirthrin, you hear disruptor fire striking the shuttle's exterior, but...
Mirthrin's going to go straight to activate the shields.
Okay. Yeah, so shields pop on, and Lotus, I'm guessing you might be going for the controls, maybe?
Mm-hmm. Jumping right into the seat, and I'm going to start her up and try to take off.
All right, I'm going to say this will be a daring plus con task. I'm going to make the difficulty here a 2. And...
Would you say the difficulty is due to environmental conditions?
Yes.
Well, I have pushed the limits, so I reduced the difficulty by 1.
Well, there you go.
So it's just a difficulty 1. All right, so it's the daring and what? And
Con.
I knew that was a good idea, giving her that.
All right, nice. You guys get 2 momentum. So, Lotus, you have absolutely 0 problems getting the shuttle to literally purr for you as you bypass all of the appropriate pre-flights and go straight to basically launching the shuttle almost emergency style off of the pad and out into open air. And you hear and see a few more bolts of disruptor fire streak past the shuttle. But after maybe 15 seconds, you're well out of range of the incoming fire.
Lotus is going to turn back to the people inside the shell and say, We aren't going to have to blow this one up.
Thankfully.
The Mirthrin lets that slide and instead radios the ship. What was the name of the shuttle again?
I don't think you actually named this shuttle. Not yet.
All right. Shuttle Limpopo to Ophion. We got away safe. We're coming in.
Panek, you would
spell
always
that.
say this.
Ophion to shuttlecraft, preparing for your disembarkation.
All right.
And assuming nothing else happens, I guess we just blast our way straight up out of the atmosphere.
Okay.
I'd like to get to the communications station and do something stupid but potentially clever.
Okay. Let's hear it.
Oh yeah.
I would try to get a secure comm link to Xavoise.
Okay. Yeah, you are actually able to get through to his assistant, Enkosh, and I'll spell that out. Enkosh. And she says, "This is Xavoise's assistant. How may I help you?"
It's this is Lieutenant Locke. You may have seen me trending. I need to speak to Xavoise right now.
Certainly, I will patch you through. And I did want to thank you for answering my question. You know what? We'll talk about that later. And you get a moment of holding music before you are transferred to Xavoise. And he says, "Ah, yes, the blue one. How can I help you?"
We were just attacked by some goons from Willowares,
Huh.
who are trying to make a hostile takeover of the third house of the Jamedia.
That's a little bit disconcerting. One moment.
I'm just just let it be known that their stocks might be going down shortly.
So you hear him working in the background, and then he comes back and says, "Well, I have good news and I have bad news. The good news is it doesn't seem that they have quite enough stock to take control of Gem Media. However, I am able to confirm that they do have a near majority of shares."
Yes. Just I wouldn't invest in their company anytime soon. In fact, I might sell if I were you.
Oh, I don't control any
Exactly.
shares of Willowares, but good to know.
Pass it on.
Maybe I can
Good
short
night.
them.
Have a good day. I hang up.
You hang up.
Wait about 30 seconds and go on the Reddit and just let it be known that Willoware just tried to start a war with the most powerful force in the Alpha Quadrant.
Oh god. Oh boy. How in the world do you even handle that?
Oh man.
I mentioned before.
You were just stirring the fire.
Yes, I am.
Since I mentioned before that Panek would be keeping his eye on Locke, do I notice this kind of unconfirmed, he doesn't have the, can't think of the word. This communication. Do I see this happening?
I would think that you would see it, or at least your comm officer would make it very well known that they have noticed this.
Lieutenant Locke, what exactly are you doing?
They attacked us. I am attacking them where it hurts. Their public reputation.
Neither myself nor the captain gave you cause to carry this out.
Can we maybe not start a conflict with the first civilization we meet?
I'm sure the other 7 houses will be very appreciative.
We'll deal with that later.
That as
Captain,
it may.
did Escarvi make it out safe?
She did. Just for sake of record, she did.
I'm going to have to ask you to refrain from further action, Lieutenant Locke, and I will be putting an official reprimand
hang
on
on.
your record.
I've got a phone.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so where are we now? Now that I've regained consciousness again.
We
are
are
on
reconvening on the Ophion, and
Someone
Panek
can fill
is
in
just-
the gaps in what I just did.
yeah. Why don't you fill him in? I'll let you do it.
What's up? Panek would probably be the one reporting.
Okay. Well, Panek, if you'd like to.
Lieutenant Locke has taken it upon himself to I guess you would state it as corporate I wouldn't say espionage, but what would you call it when you
Sabotage?
yeah, corporate sabotage. He has unofficially taken it upon himself to calm the a corporate entity and accuse another of declaring war on the Federation.
Okay, first of all, if anyone's going to say that someone declares war on the Federation, that is my job to do. Mr. Locke, we have had a discussion about your background and your aggressive tendencies in the past, and I had hoped that you would have not that, and I had hoped that you would have been able to learn and refrain from such rash courses of action. You do not speak for the Federation, you do not speak for the Federation, and nor should you be interfering with the lives of a civilization that we just met. No matter how good your intentions are, this will end badly for everyone involved. We'll deal with reprimands once this is over and done with. Current status of Xavoise and the Jamedia Corp.
Well, Xavoise followed you to the bridge, and
Okay, so she's with me. Okay.
one of your bridge crew was gracious enough to give her access to one of the consoles, since she would have very hastily asked for access to one. And
Okay.
I'm
assuming that her activities are at least being monitored in some form.
Oh yeah, most definitely.
Go.
But she reports after a few minutes of working at the console. She says, "Well, I think I've got the situation mostly under control now. I was able to get in contact with all of our major backers, and the third house is able to confirm control of another 49% of the stock. That just leaves 2% undecided."
And if I recall our slightly hazy conversation at the bar correctly, that 2% would be owned by Mr. Xavoise?
You've got it correct.
Very
Captain.
well. Yes, Mr.
Corporate-
Connect.
Corporate politics aside, I believe our next course of action should be in contacting the CEO of Willowware. The parties below have claimed to be employed by them, and they have assaulted Federation personnel.
That is a very wise course of action. Chief Tin, please find a way to contact the CEO of Willowware. I really don't care where he is. I want to talk to him.
Aye, sir. Do I have your permission to break encryption protocols?
Considering that they fired first, I think that is a very fair thing. That's a fair thing to do today.
Aye, sir.
Okay. Okay, back. Brief summary of the last 5 minutes.
Jeb Media now owns 49%. Willowware owns 49%. Xavoise owns 2%.
Right.
So, well, actually, I'll put you guys on the bridge map, since this seems to be where the scene's taking place.
So we're going to have to make sure we protect Xavoise.
Yeah. All right. So, back up on the bridge. Tin works to get you in contact with Zorzu. And after a few moments, you get a very flustered-sounding individual, and he says, "Who the hell is this? How did you get this number?"
Mr. Xavoise, or Zurzu, I am Captain Barton Skull of the USS Ophion. I believe your employees opened fire on me and my crew. Therefore, I would like to seek reparations for such an aggressive act.
I'm sorry, I must have misheard you. You say that some of my employees attacked you?
Oh, absolutely. We have scan records from our shuttlecraft and the various recording devices that we carry on our persons. Mr. Locke, if you could please play back our tricorder records from the assault, please.
We're playing.
All right, so you replay them. and they're pretty damning. And as soon as they're done, there's a slight pause, and then Zorzu says, I have no idea who these men are, and I am fairly confident in saying they did not have the blessing of the Will-O-Wares Corporation.
Well, that's all well and good. I have here the CEO of Jamedia Corp, who found herself at the mercy of these imposters, if that is what you claim them to be. I do not claim to know the intricacies of your laws, but I suspect that, given how your corporations are probably treated as a separate entity under the law, there might be some technical, there might be some ramifications from this. Miss Escavi, if you're more familiar and with the laws, is there anything that you wish to add?
Oh, yes, I would. And she presses a button, and it becomes a three-way call. And immediately, a woman's voice comes over the comm and says, "This is Korza of the ADCBL. How may I help you?" And Escavi says, "Miss Korza, I would like the Agency of Domestic Customs and Border Logistics would like them to know that the Will-O-Ware Corporation just attempted to assault our guests." And then there's a bit of silence, and Korza says, "I would like you to transfer any and all information on this immediately. I was receiving already some preliminary reports, but yes, something will need to be done about this."
I'll give Locke the nod.
Pinec will turn to Escavi and say, as we were at a Gem Media Corp starport, no doubt you have security recordings of the facility.
Oh, most definitely.
And then he'll turn back to the screens and say, "Mr. Zorza, as you claim to be unaffiliated with these parties, you will no doubt, you will certainly comply with any investigations into finding these persons, correct?"
Of course.
And then, so the fact now that Will-O-Wares now owns 49% of Jamedia Corp, just before this assault took place, am I to assume that was a legitimate purchase, or are you not affiliated with the folks that have purchased these shares under your name?
He doesn't reply, but Korza does, and she says, "Not to worry, Captain Skull. We will be looking into that matter very carefully."
I appreciate that. Sorry, out of character, were any of my crew... was anyone injured during the firefight?
Beckett was.
Beckett. Severely?
No, he was able to avoid the injury and then heal himself.
Okay. Despite one of my crews got minorly wounded during the unfortunate incident, I am pleased to say that he has recovered, so we will not be pursuing a separate legal claim of our own.
Well, should you choose to file one, the Agency of Domestic Customs and Border Logistics would be happy to accommodate you, sir.
That is most kind to hear. We will proceed under the umbrella of Jamedia Corp for the moment.
Understood. Korza out. And then, unless you stop, all the calls disconnect.
So, what now, Captain?
That's a good question. Miss Escavi, what's next in the proceedings?
Well, I think it's most important that we see where Xavoise stands in all this. I'm fairly confident he'll be on our side, but...
assuming those weren't his goons setting us against Will-O-Ware.
Honestly, couldn't tell you. He would be a move very odd for him, but I suppose today's been a strange day. Strange things could be happening. No, I think that either I can convince Xavoise to hand over his 2%, or maybe persuade him to give the Federation his shares.
I just raise an eyebrow and go, that's a very interesting offer, but one that I think is best handled by our diplomatic corps. If you, as we have,
Or at least by someone who knows what stocks are.
precisely. I wonder if they'll loan us Nog from Deep Space Nine. This Xavoise person doesn't have extremely large earlobes, does he?
No.
No, I didn't think so. Yeah.
Something Zareed handles. I mean, it's going to be a long time for a diplomatic corps to come out here.
Yeah, I mean, Zareed will, of course, take first crack at the contract and go through all the legalese. I think it would be acceptable. I don't know if it's acceptable to take 2% of any alien corporation shares for this early on.
Yeah, I would say that either you as the captain or Zareed would know that that might be violating General Order Number 1.
Pretty much. If not, it's one of those other things saying you cannot own stock in a planet that you're supposed to be protecting.
Correct.
Conflict of interest rules or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So that's obviously not going to happen. But yeah, if both Xavoise and Escavi are amenable to the Federation, I see no harm in at least laying the groundwork for a trade. We'd have to. They'll probably want, if they're starting to explore trilithium, then we could offer them research that what we've done on trilithium handling. Since all Federation ships use dilithium, trilithium has probably been explored in some way, shape, or form, and I don't think is that big a problem.
Okay.
Worth noting that there aren't any well-aware marked ships that are sort of slowly approaching us from orbit, are there?
No. I mean, obviously there are some in orbit, but they're not headed towards you in any capacity.
All right. Did we retrieve the shuttle?
You
Yes.
did, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, good. So it's not blown up. Nice.
That was
call that a
one
win.
time!
We did not execute the Mirthrin maneuver, no.
Probably for the best.
Captain,
Yes, Mr. Panek.
while the acquisition of Gem Media Corp is clearly the intended overture here, it may turn out to be entirely legitimate within the legislation of the Xavoise. Therefore, I think our best course of action and only legitimate means here is to investigate the assault on our crew. This may lead to further investigations and information for us to determine who is involved here.
I don't suppose we brought any of them up with us to the brig.
Unfortunately,
No.
That's going to be very.
Technically, that would be kidnapping.
Well, they assaulted us first. I think one crime allows another, doesn't it? Probably not. That's unfederation thinking.
Wrong zone.
Indeed.
The crew of it will be very difficult to do anything. Those people have been the assault has long fled. If Mrs. Escavi is willing, we can investigate. Her premises and see if there's any of our technology that can ascertain the identity of these individuals. But it's a planet of 8 billion down there, and if they've gone to the wind, their local authorities are far better suited.
Escavi kind of looks up from the console and says, yeah, the reports I'm getting are that as soon as we transported away, they essentially jumped off the edge of the spaceport and glided away. So they're in the wind.
Literally.
Well,
Yeah. And if they're gliding in the wind, then there's no chance of an ion trail to follow. Not that one could follow an ion trail in such a dense city anyways.
Well, maybe there's another way we can come at this.
I'm all
Scully,
ears.
I remember you feeling confused when you saw the logistics window. Was that something to do with the buying up of the shares?
Oh, no. I was simply confused as to why one of our outlying supply craft was behind on schedule.
Hmm.
With your
Is
permission.
that very unusual?
Indeed, it's one of the things that has been planned for months and months in advance.
Is it on? If we can tie into their system, is it back on? This is probably a red herring, but is it back? Is the ship back on track?
Oh, now it is. Now that I've noticed and acted appropriately.
There you go. I'm sorry, Mr. Panek. What were you going to ask?
With your permission, I shall update Starbase Daedalus and Starfleet Command of our current situation.
Absolutely. Please do.
All right.
Um,
So, how we'll handle it from here, since a lot of this is going to be an internal Xavoise affair. We'll say that you, of course, once everything's calmed down and her safety can be assured, you send SKV back down to her people, and you get the sense, either through Zareed or through an official communique, that the ADCBL is investigating multiple fronts at this point. However, they're not expected to wrap up their investigation for at least several weeks.
Meantime,
So,
I think Mirthran's going to, because we're essentially killing time, Mirthran's going to look into that shuttle that got delayed.
okay. Well, that was...
Like, in character, he's feeling a little guilty about, hey, we kind of triggered this hostile takeover of her company. We should sort of do what we can to fix things. Out of character, I'm suspicious of a shuttle suddenly being delayed when they go to an incredibly strict schedule.
Okay. Why don't you do an insight plus engineering? Let's make it a roll. We'll do an insight plus engineering, and we'll say the difficulty's a 2.
Would computer expertise count here, or?
I'm gonna say no.
Alrighty. So just insight plus engineering, and no real focuses I have that apply, so just going on the strength of the thing alone. 1 success.
Yeah, so the information you're able to get basically tells you that they had some form of technical problem, one that wasn't caught in their latest maintenance. So it's basically the equivalent of an airplane on the tarmac doesn't start properly, and you're left sitting in the terminal just kind of twiddling your thumbs as they get the maintenance crews out there. It's not something that, like, just based on the data, you're not suspecting any foul play. It was just something that, accidents happen, kind of a thing.
Alright. Well, I'm happy to leave that there.
So is this like a time where there's weeks going on?
Well, yeah. So that was going to be my question, though. Is obviously SKV and her Jamedia Corporation is interested in continuing diplomatic relations with the Federation, but since it is going to be several weeks before the ADCBL is able to at least start to wrap up their investigation, did you guys want to stick around, or did you want to head back out into your explorations of the Sabine Expanse?
I mean, we probably if we're going to be around for weeks, it probably would make sense to go do some more exploring while we're waiting.
Yeah, we've just gotten a star chart with all sorts of new planets and probably a couple new races out there to go meet.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm all for letting the Xavoise sort themselves out, and by the time they are ready to put this matter to rest and talk to the Federation again, proper diplomatics core team could be assembled at Starbase Daedalus and can
Shut out.
can come out here and do all that stuff that captains don't really need to worry about.
And speaking for myself personally, I now feel feel a lot better about letting Jamedia Corporation get first pick.
As am I.
This, however, is not your place to decide, Lieutenant.
Oh no, it's certainly not our place to decide, but we are human after all. Well, humanoids. We are allowed to have preferences.
Mertrin sort of folds his arms and sort of taps his foot at Skull.
As a reminder, I just absent-mindedly drag my finger down my line of spots.
If we're going to be spending weeks doing stuff, Hinek, considering the recent events, is going to.
I've just realized we have a fully non-human bridge crew.
Mm-hmm. I know, you were saying, Panek.
He's just going to increase security drills and await team responses, considering they were just fired upon down there.
All right, well, Lieutenant Chatsu will happily do all of those things. Did anyone else have anything they wanted to get out of the way, or can I do kind of the ending scene?
Captain Skull will have words with Ensign Cardassian lady, whatever her name was.
Ensign Lotus?
Yes. I found her inquisitorial nature to be rather aggressive on planet, and as we were supposed to be down there as learning about their culture rather than trying to poke holes in it. And I found her inquisitorial nature to be a little blunt.
Well, Panek, I'll let you decide how she responds to that.
Sometimes a blunt instrument is required. You can only see past the facade once you begin to poke holes in it, sir.
If you want to poke holes in it, you use precise tools such as observations, data gathering, and sociological methods. If you want to use a blunt method, that just leaves everything bloody and broken.
If I may speak freely, Captain.
That hasn't stopped you before.
I did not find my line of inquiry to be all that damning or inflammatory. I asked many questions that gave me better insights into their society, whether it was susceptible to a change that could come around when interacting with the Federation, as to their history and their current the rights afforded to their citizens. If I came off as aggressive, I apologize and chalk it up to my Cardassian nature.
I just smile and say, "Are you sure you're not half Vulcan?"
Do not insult me so.
I am. I just steep my fingers a bit, and my response to that is going to be along the lines of, your inquiries about how a society works is one thing, but to make assumptions based on what we have seen in the past or using history to judge a planet and a culture that we have never come across. If we make assumptions about a society that is brand new to us based on what we've seen so far, then we could end up damaging that society.
I do not believe I made assumptions or passed judgment. I merely used my own circumstance and past experience to create a perspective of which to view the Xavoise.
Well, from my in the bar, from my vantage point, you were pressing that bartender very, very hard over a viewpoint that he'd already answered. So there is an inquisitorial nature about you, Ensign, which is a very good thing to foster and nurture. But be sure that you're not trying to answer questions to fit an answer or ask questions to fit an answer you've already formed in your own mind.
As my experience with the Central Command has left me, I find that the first answer you're given always isn't quite exactly what is at play, if I will.
Well, I hope that your experiences with Starfleet will temper that and allow you a little bit more trust in the future, Ensign. Dismissed.
All right. So,
Those two are going to get along swimmingly.
oh yeah. So what we're going to do is we will end the actual session there, but before I kick us off stream and wrap up the session completely, I did want to do reputation while we are live. So we haven't done a reputation roll yet. And the way reputation works is basically you roll a d20, and you are trying to get below a certain amount, like everything else in the system. So, for example, right now, everybody's reputation should be at a 10. So you're trying to roll under a 10.
Alrighty, let's see how things go.
Okay. I think we're just missing. Who are we missing? We are missing Mirth. No, Mirth
Missing
is
Locke.
there.
Nope, there's Locke.
Okay.
Oh, boy.
So the captain and Locke, you guys have not only rolled under your privilege, but you've succeeded. So Locke and let me handle it on a case by case basis. So captain, your reputation goes up to 12. Mirthrin, yours goes up to 11. And Locke, you are actually going to stay at the same reputation. Actually, no, wait a second.
I'm not going to lose reputation because I did horrible things.
Right. Let me quickly tally up your negative die here. Yeah, you're just going to stay neutral. Because you had 2 negative die from my notes. The rest of you just stay at 10, unfortunately.
And where's this? Is there a field in the sheet for reputation, or did I just mark that somewhere?
Just make sure you note it somewhere that I can find it.
Other equipment.
And to kind of give you a quick synopsis of reputation is this lets you decide, or really is an indicator of how influential or how quote-unquote good of an officer you might be. And if you hit a certain amount, like if you get hit 15 and would go higher than 15, you as the captain would have the option of promoting the character in question. But we'll get to that bridge when we come to it. The last thing I wanted to do before ending the session was we do have a spotlight milestone going out for the end of the year. So the way a spotlight milestone works is all of you as players will nominate another player who can receive this spotlight milestone. So let's just start at the top in Discord and work our way down. So Captain, who would you vote for?
I don't know. I actually have been enjoying how Locke has been contributing to things.
Okay. All right, so 1 vote for Locke. Panek, who would you vote for?
I would also give it to Locke because sometimes the different play style of character lends to the game, I think,
Oh yeah, I definitely understand. And I agree, but I don't get a vote. Beckett, who would you vote for?
Sure. Why don't we keep it going with unanimous? I'd say Locke as well.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, Locke and Mirthrin, who would you two vote for?
I'd go with Beckett. I've been quite enjoying the banter, especially with the EMH.
I'd be hard pressed, but I thought Panek did really well this time with the 2 characters.
Okay. Well, 3 votes says that Locke, you get a spotlight milestone. Ooh. And remember, you can spend that on an NPC if you so wish. But this is where I'm going to stop the stream, so players stick around just for a little bit. But for anyone who's watching, have a happy holidays. Thank you for watching, and we will see you in January. Bye-bye, guys.